So there's much debate right now about how or when this whole decline began. It can actually be argued that economically the golden age for America was the 1950s. That's when we had the largest share of global GDP in our history. Since then, it's gradually come down. Now there's no doubt that China and India will be more than 50% of the world's GDP in the next 10 to 20 years. You could even say that in the 1980s and 1990s, while they were prosperous, and some of us consider them the good old days, they were somewhat smoke and mirrors, like the tech bubble that sent the NASDAQ to 5,000 in 2000. Over the past 10 years, the U.S. stock market is actually down. Our fiscal deficit this year, $1.3 trillion, last year, $1.4 trillion. Our debt is about equal to our annual GDP. Sentiment readings reveal that there's less hope for the future than there is even in this current turmoil. In a recent global assessment of competitiveness for 139 countries, America came in 4th, behind Switzerland, Sweden, and Singapore. The 3 S's. I'm glad they didn't say Senegal, because that really would have been bad. But really, we have some serious problems in this country. One of the things that worried me about this particular study was that when they measured the quality of math and science education, we ranked 52 out of 139. So you got to figure that we could become really snared in this trap even deeper. And it's going to be real tough to figure out how to get back on track or even have the will to get back on track. Because right now, for most people, having any kind of job feels good. Even if you've had to take a large pay cut, even if you had to take a cut to the intellectual challenges at work. And it's not just the economic numbers that understate or underscore the fact that many people are giving up on this country and our future. Our birth and marriage rates have decreased to all-time lows, while drug use is exploding. That is a recipe for long-term mediocrity. In fact, if you ever study Japan, they've been in a 2 decades-long slump. The land of the rising sun has the lowest birth rate and the oldest population in the world. 23% of the population is over 65, and now the death rate exceeds birth rates. Japan is in a lot of trouble. It should stand as a cautionary tale and a warning for America. But we aren't there yet. However, we're starting to slink, and our expectations are getting lower and lower. We're at the point now where exceptionalism is actually frowned upon by some and considered a pipe dream by others. I happen to run a business where my guys work on commission. They can make unlimited money, and yet each sales guy has their own personal level of satisfaction. I know what they are. I know that if this guy made 10 grand that week, I don't know, he can't get over the hump unless I'm there. But it's kind of crazy that you have these people who can make whatever they want, they can push the envelope, and yet people have a certain level, a self-imposed level of content. Now, I say to myself, well, maybe it's just human nature. Maybe people and countries reach a summit, and we just kind of put it in park or neutral. I know that growing up in Harlem, I knew people that were born on welfare and they're going to die on government assistance. The sad part is that a lot of those people actually think that they're getting over on this system, when in fact, they're nothing more than modern-day versions of those same serfs I talked about in Russia. These people are lorded over by the same kind of incompetent politicians that littered the British Foreign Service. Still, starting to celebrate mediocrity. Our stock market has shown us over the last year that whenever there's a so-called green shoot, in other words, just one little tiny spurt of hope, stock prices have gone up. Now, the Roman Empire reached the same sort of state, I think, that we're in, where people sort of forgot what made them the rulers of the greatest empire the world has seen to that point. Threatened by Huns and other barbarians, Romans enlisted the help of the Goths and other former foes. Well, the Goths sacked Rome in 410, and along with the Vandals, they wreaked havoc throughout the empire thereafter. Militarily, America might, well, we don't need any help right now militarily, but we may have to enlist the help of intellectual mercenaries to help us make up for our disastrous education system. We can have the world's largest economy for years to come and still be mediocre. We can get unemployment down. We can get it down to 7%, 6%, and still be mediocre. There are a lot of ways we might feel better in the near future, even as our greatness continues to slip away. I say we must avoid the status quo of now and go back to the status quo of the past, when everyone thought they could work hard and become rich. You hear a lot now people saying, well, things are different, you know, not everybody can own a house. I say, why not? I don't want anyone to believe that America's best days are behind it. I want Americans to invest in American companies. I want the stock market to go up when companies say they're hiring, not firing workers. Now, maybe it is inevitable that empires fall, but I say if that's the case, we need to go out kicking and screaming, not with our shoulders slumped, applauding job losses and meaningless silver linings. Now, some of the things I think we should probably consider in this country: cutting elementary and secondary school, summer school vacations to 1 month in high-performing neighborhoods and 2 weeks in others. Do you know the average black kid in 12th grade is 2.5, 3 years behind the average white kid? Now what happens is there's a thing called the summer slide. You're out of school for 2.5 months and you don't pick up a book. Multiply that by 10 years, 11 years, and you get the difference. 2 weeks vacation for them. Get rid of minimum wage. Institute a strong GI Bill to cover homes and businesses. Cut taxes. Allow for greater immigration, especially those with high-tech credentials. I think publicly traded companies should report their earnings twice a year rather than 4 times a year. We've become very myopic on how good Apple did over the last 3 months, when these large, giant companies should be focused on the next 5 to 10 years. Obviously, we're going to have to reform Social Security and Medicare immediately, so that we're not like France, where they're rioting in the street because now the retirement age is going to be 62 instead of 60. I think we should provide free colleges where admission is based on grades. And of course, we have to reform schools. I think there should be some sort of a bonus system put in there, tougher tenure rules, and all of this should be based on much stricter standards. I know we can do it, but the clock is ticking. We're not the Los Angeles Clippers yet, but we're really at the point where Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds stood in 1984, after they made City Heat. 26 years from now, we could be looking at high levels of excellence, or we could be looking back and talking about the time when we were great. Thanks a lot. Thank you.